So, when I say the word economics, what pops into your head? Is it like complicated charts, the stock market, or maybe you've heard it called the dismal science? Well, I want you to try and forget all of that, because economics, at its core, isn't really about money at all. It's the incredible story of human progress and how we figured out how to build a better world. Let's dive in. For almost all of human history, life was, let's be honest, pretty terrible. I mean, just imagine a life expectancy of only 25 years. Starvation was a constant threat. Now, fast forward to today. We live almost 3 times as long. We've got antibiotics, we can fly across the planet in hours, and for many of us, one of the biggest health risks is actually obesity. It's a completely different world. So the real question is, how on earth do we pull this off? Well, the answer starts with a really fundamental problem, one that has defined our entire existence: scarcity. You know the feeling, right? We have unlimited wants. We want more food, better health, more happiness, you name it. But we live in a world with limited resources. There's just never enough time, money, or stuff to do every single thing we want. And that forces us to make choices. And that, right there, is the heart of economics. It's not about money, it's the science of choice. It's all about how we, as individuals, as societies, try to squeeze the most happiness and well-being we can out of the limited resources we have. You can really think of it as a toolkit for making smarter decisions. You know, for centuries, human progress was just painfully slow, mostly because we didn't have great systems for making all those choices. But then, a really revolutionary idea started to take hold: the market system. And what's so fascinating about it, what makes it so powerful, is that it doesn't rely on people being nice to each other. It actually harnesses a much, much more reliable human trait. This famous line from Adam Smith just nails it. Think about it. The baker doesn't bake you bread because he's a great guy. He does it to earn a living. But in the process of looking out for himself, he ends up providing you with exactly what you needed for dinner. Now, when you multiply that by millions of people all pursuing their own interests, you get this incredibly complex, coordinated society where needs are met, almost like it's all guided by an invisible hand. Okay, let's look at a simple but perfect example. Toilet paper. In a market economy, if everyone suddenly wants toilet paper, the price might go up a bit. That's a signal. It tells producers, hey, make more of this stuff. And pretty soon, the shelves are restocked. But in a command economy, you've got a few planners in a room trying to guess what millions of people need. The result? Total chaos and shortages. There was even a famous saying about it: if you saw a line, you got in it, even if you didn't know what it was for. That's a system that's not working. Now, after hearing all that, you might think markets are perfect. But they're not. They're far from it, actually. Sometimes that invisible hand can totally fumble the ball, leading to outcomes that are not so great for everyone. And this is where the rules of the game become absolutely crucial. Economists have a name for this. They call it a market failure. It can happen for a lot of reasons, but a really common one is when the rules about who owns what are fuzzy or just plain missing. Let's look at a classic case to see exactly what that means. Okay, picture a big open pasture that anyone in town can use for their cattle. It's free for all. Now, if you're a herder, what's your incentive? It's to get as many of your cows on that field as fast as you can to fatten them up, right? But here's the catch. Every other herder is thinking the exact same thing, and pretty soon the pasture is overgrazed and completely destroyed, making it useless for everybody. It's a tragedy, and we see it play out today with things like overfishing in the oceans. It shows us exactly why we sometimes need clear rules, like property rights or regulations, to make sure our individual incentives don't end up hurting the whole group. All right, so we've talked about bugs in the system, like when the rules of the game are broken. But what happens when the bugs are actually inside our own heads? This brings us to one of my favorite topics, the super fascinating field of behavioral economics. It's all about the gap between how we think we make decisions and how our sometimes quirky, often irrational brains actually work. Let me ask you a question, a little thought experiment to test your own inner economist. You're at an all-you-can-eat sushi buffet. You've already paid your $15. You're starting to get full, but, you want to get your money's worth. So how much more sushi should you eat? Now, if you're like most of us, your gut instinct is probably to keep eating, right? Maybe even until you feel a little bit sick, just to get that $15 worth. Well, economists have a name for this very common mental trap. They call it the sunk cost fallacy. And here's why that thinking is totally flawed. Here's the thing. That $15, it's gone. Poof. It's a sunk cost. You are never, ever getting it back, no matter how many spicy tuna rolls you force down. So the only rational question to ask is, What will make me happiest right now? And the answer is to eat until the very next piece of sushi would make you feel worse, not better. Forcing yourself to eat more just to justify a past payment only makes you miserable in the present. And once you see this fallacy, you'll see it everywhere, from finishing a bad movie you paid for to staying in a job you can't stand. So, as we've seen, economics isn't some dusty set of answers in a textbook. It's actually this incredibly flexible toolkit for thinking. It helps us understand these huge global systems, but it also helps us understand the weird little quirks of our own minds. So, let's wrap this up with the key tools you can take with you. If you remember anything from this, let it be these big ideas. First, incentives drive almost everything. Understand the incentives, and you'll understand the behavior. Second, there are always trade-offs. You can't have it all. Every choice has a cost. Third, always be on the lookout for unintended consequences. And finally, remember that when a market looks chaotic, it's often not unstable. It's just being incredibly responsive. Remember that great escape we talked about at the very beginning? That journey from poverty to the world we have today? That wasn't an accident. The principles of economics gave us the toolkit to figure out how to create abundance. So the real question for us today is, what are the next big problems, things like climate change or healthcare, that we can start to solve if we apply this same powerful way of thinking?